The jury will not be sequestered.
I'm Brian Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin.
The Weinstein case, fellow silence breakers, and
Selection is moving along here.
I'll read the verdict, says Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining.
We don't tend to see it as raw as this.
Good evening and welcome. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Morning Docket here at Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us. We are now in day 3 and hour 9 of deliberations out in Fairfax County, Virginia, for the defamation trial of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. And if you're just tuning into this case, Depp is suing his former spouse for $50 million over her 2018 op-ed in the Washington Post, dubbing herself a domestic abuse victim. Depp claims he was the real victim of domestic abuse and that the op-ed cost him his reputation along with several acting roles. But it doesn't stop there, because Heard is countersuing Depp for $100 million over Depp and his attorney's alleged smear campaign following the op-ed. And as we wait for a verdict, we're going to be replaying some of the most pivotal moments from this trial. And at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're also going to be taking your questions live. That's right, from YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. Get those questions to us. Get them ready. We are going to answer them live on the air. But right now, before we get into any of the clips in this case and any of the testimony that you might have missed, it's time to go live to Fairfax County, Virginia, where we have our very own Anjanette Levy, who is outside the courthouse in a very windy, breezy day, I can see, Anjanette. Good morning. Good to see you. What is the latest you have for us?
Well, good morning to you, Jesse. And yes, it's breezy, but guess what? We'll take the breeze, because yesterday was just awful. It was muggy. It was hot. It's going to be muggy and hot again. So we'll take the breeze this morning, right? But right now, not a whole lot going on. The attorneys for Johnny Depp arrived just a short time ago. They went into the courthouse, and we haven't heard anything from them. The jury should be resuming deliberations very shortly. Meanwhile, Johnny Depp last night on stage again at the Royal Albert Hall in London with Jeff Beck performing. Kate Moss, I am told, was there as an invited special guest of Johnny Depp. She, of course, was a huge witness in this trial for Johnny Depp, testifying that he never pushed her down a set of stairs or harmed her in any way. Amber Heard, you'll recall, had claimed that she had heard this story about Johnny Depp tossing Kate Moss down the steps, and that's all she could think about during an altercation with Depp at the top of the stairs at his penthouse back in March of 2015. But Kate Moss debunking that claim that Amber Heard had not only made in this trial, but also in the UK trial, that Johnny Depp never harmed her. So they dated back in the 90s. I think she said 94 to 97 or 98, somewhere in there. And they're still friends, still very friendly. She testified for him in this trial. She didn't have to do that. So she was at the concert last night. I'm told Sharon Osbourne was also there. Johnny Depp in London performing with Jeff Beck. So not here in Fairfax County, Virginia. There's a friend of Amber Heard's, meanwhile, who has tweeted, been very vocal. Her name is Eve Barlow. She is somebody who was expelled from the courtroom and barred and banned from the courtroom very early in the trial. She's been tweeting that Amber Heard is here waiting for a verdict. She has to wait for a verdict. So that's all we know as far as Amber Heard is concerned.
But no sightings of Amber Heard outside that courthouse. And Janet, let me ask you this. What is the structure for the jurors in their deliberations? Because it's our understanding they create their own schedule, right? Based on what you saw yesterday, what can we glean on what we can expect today?
Well, it appeared yesterday they started around 9 a.m. It's 9 a.m. Eastern time now here in the United States, and I say that because we have a lot of international viewers watching us. So 9 a.m. Eastern time to our international audience. They should have arrived right now. It was around noon or maybe a little thereafter that I know that they were approached and asked if they wanted to go to lunch. Just FYI, I tweeted this out yesterday. In a lot of trials that we cover, we see where once deliberations begin, sometimes they'll order in the lunch and sometimes even dinner if the jurors are going late into the evening. That's not happening in this trial. The jurors are responsible for their own lunch. So I was told yesterday some of them were seen with lunch boxes. They're taken down to the cafeteria. If they want to buy something, they're on their own. The jurors will probably have lunch if they're still deliberating around noon, break for a little lunch, and then resume deliberations. Yesterday they left at 5. So should they deliberate throughout the day today and not reach a verdict, I would assume sounds like they're going to be a 9 to 5 jury. It's a lot of work.
A courthouse that size, they can't chip in for a sandwich? My goodness, I don't know what's happening down
Apparently
in Fairfax.
not.
That is very surprising.
I'll poke around on that. Yeah.
Very surprising,
And
considering
it's a stunning courthouse.
It is. It's
Yeah.
massive, but you know, a bag of potato chips. What are we talking about? Anyway, Anjanette Levy, thank you so much. I know you're headed into the courtroom to maybe find out some more information. Stacey Delicat is going to come on a little bit later. We have our full team down in Fairfax County, Virginia. I did mention that we want to bring you up to speed on what you might have missed. There was some activity yesterday in the courtroom. The jury did have a question. Let's play that and we'll break it down on the other side.
The question is, does question number 3, the statement is false, pertain to the headline, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath, or does it pertain to the content of the statement, everything written in the op-ed? So I think the confusion came in this particular one because the statement in question is the title of the op-ed. So I think they're just confused as whether it's the whole op-ed or just the title is the statement. And it's clear that the title is the statement. So I was going to answer to say the title is the statement in question for number 3. Does that seem appropriate to everybody?
All right, so you might be asking, what does that question mean? Well, that's why I have a great panel of guests with me this morning. Trial attorney Jenny Elkady and criminal defense attorney Matt Tepanek. It's great to have you both here. Jenny, I'll start with you. What do you glean from that question?
I think it means that the jury's doing a really good job at trying to figure out, okay, what statements are true. It's clear that they're actually like looking through all the evidence and saying, okay, you know, is it just the title? Is it these 3 main statements in question? I think it's a really good sign that they're trying to figure out, they're really taking all the evidence in, and they're trying to glean what is the truth statement, what is the statement that they're trying to focus on. So I think it's a good thing.
But Matt, do you see it as something a little bit deeper here, right? It was about the sexual violence headline. To anybody who's been following this trial, that could be the most problematic statement. And that was a question. Are they have to look at it as a statement or they look at the entirety of the article? It is that statement. That one could be the most problematic for Amber Heard. Do you think that they're looking at that carefully and saying, well, did Johnny Depp really sexually assault Amber Heard, if that's how they're defining sexual violence? The fact that they asked about that headline in particular, what does that tell you?
That tells me if you're Johnny Depp's team, that's a very good question for the jury to consider. As seen throughout the trial, a lot of statements were made by Amber Heard that Johnny Depp sexually assaulted her. But for her testimony, that really wasn't corroborated throughout the trial. That being said, the main content in the op-ed itself is talking about domestic violence, which has been somewhat corroborated, much more than the sexual violence. So if you're Depp's team, you're hearing that question like, okay, good. They saw exactly, if they're asking this question, I think we're in good shape as to that statement because the sexual violence wasn't corroborated to the extent the domestic violence was.
So let's focus on the headline a little bit, because during the course of this trial, we heard from Terrence Dougherty, who was with the ACLU, talked about how the ACLU was instrumental in drafting this op-ed and the headline and how it is approved. And then you're going to hear Amber Heard actually deny having anything to do with the headline. Let's take a look.
And she writes, "Hey, Michael, wondering if we might interest you in a piece by Amber Heard, who, as you may recall, was beaten up during her brief marriage to Johnny Depp, on what the incoming Congress can do to help protect women in similar situations." Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you read it correctly.
Directing your attention to the title, Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. Who came up with that title?
Based on my investigation, I'm not aware of I'm not aware that the ACLU had any role in writing the name of the op-ed piece. And my understanding of how op-ed pieces work is that it is the media, in this case, the Washington Post, would have drafted the name of the title of the op-ed and not the person who wrote the op-ed.
Did the Washington Post seek the ACLU's or Ms. Heard's approval of its title?
I believe the answer to that is no. There's nothing in the evidence that shows that they reached out to us to do that, and it is inconsistent with my understanding in that these news outlets do not usually ask for the permission of the author of the op-ed to for when they come up with the title.
No, this is the online version of the op-ed, and it has this title, Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. What, if any, role did you play in this title?
None.
What, if any, role, to your knowledge, did the ACLU play in this title?
None to my knowledge.
Okay. Are these exact words anywhere in the article?
No.
Okay.
No, they're not.
When did you first become aware of this title being included in the online version of the op-ed?
I think in this litigation is the first time I realized that.
Jenny, here's the thing that I don't quite understand, okay? So she denies having anything to do with the title. It's going to be a separate question for the jury if she republished this article by tweeting about it. The problem is she alleged sexual assault. She alleged sexual violence in her case. So she's saying she had nothing to do with that title, but yet she's saying the same thing.
Yes, I think something that is really inconsistent with Amber's case in chief is the severe contradictory statements that you see throughout the entire trial. You never know what is it that she's trying to prove, because at some points, they're trying to say, oh, well, it was verbal abuse. Oh, it was sexual abuse. Oh, it was, domestic violence. It's never consistent, and that's the difficulty. And I think that's what the jury is struggling with as well. They're trying to figure out, okay, is she claiming sexual abuse? Is she claiming, verbal abuse? What is it that she's claiming? They're getting confused by it.
Yeah, and that becomes the question, Matt. Really, when you're thinking about what the jury has to show here, the republication by Amber Heard, that is an essential issue for them. Her tweeting out the article with the title of it, and her providing a little commentary, I wrote this article, is that going to constitute republication for defamation purposes? And just so we might be what am I talking about when I say republication? Because that is something that the jury has to find, right?
Republication is putting the knowledge up so the public can actually read it. By the act of her actually tweeting it, that in and itself constitutes republication. For me, for her to say that, oh, the first time I found out about it was in litigation, that just doesn't seem like it's consistent with the fact. Additionally, by tweeting it itself, she's looking at it, it's like, okay, all right, retweeting, whatever, you got to read the headline first. And it's like, a jury's going to have a real hard time thinking that when that article was put out that she had absolutely no knowledge about the title being about sexual violence, because a reasonable person, if it's like saying, that's not what I'm saying, I'm a victim of domestic violence, don't say sexual violence, that's different. So I have a hard time thinking the jury's going to believe her claim on that one.
All right, well, let's talk more about this case as we are currently in verdict watch in the Amber Heard Johnny Depp defamation trial. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more. Welcome back, everybody. As we wait for a verdict in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial, we're recapping some of the most pivotal and memorable testimony in this case, including that of Isaac Baruch, one of the first witnesses that we heard from, a friend of Johnny Depp. Also, you could say a friend of Amber Heard. He had lived in the same building as the couple, observed a lot of their interactions. He was just a very likable person. When he took the stand, so many people online and even here on the network just loved what he had to say. This is Isaac Baruch talking a little bit more about his interactions with Amber Heard.
During your time living at the Eastern Columbia building, did you develop a relationship with the defendant in this case, Ms. Heard?
Yeah.
And did you get along with Ms. Heard?
I loved her. I fell in love with her just like Johnny fell in love with her. I fell in love with her. She's totally respectful, gracious to me, that she's got great teeth, that she treated me with complete respect. Anytime I walk into the humor-wise, total locker room humor, demented humor, totally laughed at, the jokes, made the jokes, totally got along with her. Every time I walked into their place, Isaac, you want something to eat? Isaac, you want something to drink? Every time. There's only one time I remember that she didn't offer, because I walked in and she's in the kitchen at the counter and she's doing a beauty facial mask, and so she can't offer me. And I'm going, hey, is that something that can help me? And she looked at me and she goes, no. And I'm laughing, and then she laughed after because she didn't realize she was making a joke. So yeah, I love her.
Did you notice any marks on her face when you were speaking with her?
No.
Did you see any bruises?
No.
Did you see any redness?
No.
Did you notice any swelling?
No.
Did it look like Ms. Heard was wearing any makeup?
No.
Had you seen her wearing makeup before?
Yeah.
And you had seen her not wearing makeup before?
Yeah, I seen, like I said, with the face mask, doing a face mask, no makeup, hanging around, waking up in the morning, no with makeup, glammed out to go out. And it's 3.5 years of seeing her in different forms.
Did you speak with Mr. Drew about anything at that point?
Well, yeah, after I said that, hey, what's going on? And he gave me the high sign to, like, hey, follow him. We went into my apartment and had a conversation.
And what happened after you had that conversation with Mr. Drew?
We left the apartment and we go walking back towards Penthouse 1, and as I'm walking back, I say to Amber, as I'm walking up, "He hit you?" And she goes, "Yeah, he threw a phone at me and hit me." And I'm looking, because I had just seen her 2 feet away, and I'm going, "Where?" And she puts her head out. She puts her face out like that for me to look at her, the right side of her face. And I'm looking, but at that point also, I'm looking, and I turn around, get on the other side. We're in the doorway. So I'm on this side with the light shining this way from the doorway with the lights above, but the sunshine. And she's got her face out like this, looking, you know, to show me. And I'm looking, and I inspect her face. I'm looking at her forehead. I'm looking at the side of her eye. I'm looking at her cheek. I'm looking at her chin. I'm looking at the other side of the face. I'm looking at the whole thing. And I don't see anything. I don't see anything I don't see a cut, a bruise, swelling, redness. It's just Amber's face that she's going like this and showing me. So I'm not seeing anything. I back up and I'm making a joke. I make a joke going, "Well, I don't see anything, but maybe all the beauty from one side of your face to the other side of the face is outshining everything, so I can't see anything." And she's laughed and she's, you know, smiled. And I just looked at everybody and said, "Hey, it sounds nuts." And I went and I said, "I gotta go." And I gave her a hug and kissed her on that side of the face. Kissed her on that side of the face. And then I left. Said goodbye.
You know, as much as he says he fell in love with Amber, I think we all fell in love with you, Mr. Baruch. I really do. And the thing is, Jenny, you know, this is an interesting witness because we've seen so many people testify, like Johnny Depp's bodyguards. All right, you could say, you know, they're biased. Friends of Amber Heard, you know, it was too convenient, the things they saw. There was something about his testimony that I think just rang true to a lot of people, that when he said he didn't observe any injuries and got a pretty good look, and this is after the alleged cell phone incident in May of 2016, that there's something that felt real about that. What was your take?
I agree 100%. I mean, this witness was just by far one of my favorite witnesses. I mean, he was so genuine. He made you laugh. But you also believed him because, like you said, Jesse, there were so many witnesses that you could just clearly tell they were biased. I mean, you could tell they were Team Johnny, they were Team Amber. I mean, it was really, really hard. This witness, he just had such a charismatic characteristic to him that it was like you just fell in love with him and you believed what he had to say because he was genuine. So I think it was great that he testified. He said what he believed to be true, that, you know, he loved Amber and he didn't see anything on her.
But I'm still confused, Matt. We saw these photos. Rocky Pennington spoke about these photos of Amber Heard's bruised face, the redness on the cheeks, and neither Isaac Baruch, the police officers, Alejandro Romero, who worked in the building, no one saw this. So what is the conclusion about why she looked the way she did in those photos?
It depends. Obviously, in certain situations, bruising can show up later after this incident. So when Isaac actually saw this, he saw it immediately after the incident when it probably hadn't fully healed. What he was doing was giving great facts as to how he was inspecting, the light was coming in from the side. Remember this, in trials, facts win cases. What he was giving was great fact witness testimony, in addition to just being a likable witness. When you're that likable, the jury doesn't even care that you are Johnny Depp's friend and that you are by nature biased towards him. They believed everything he had to say about that incident. So the conclusion would likely be that those claim is not corroborated, that she could have just doctored the photographs because all those people didn't see the injuries she sustained, and they were believable versus Amber Heard, whose claims and testimony at times was a little unbelievable.
Well, I mean, we have to be clear about Isaac Baruch. It's not like he didn't have an opinion on this case. He got very emotional on the stand, and particularly when he was being questioned by Amber Heard's counsel. Take a look.
And for Johnny, his family has been completely wrecked by all of this stuff, and it's not fair. It's not right what she did and what happened for so many people to get affected from this. It's insane.
And Mr. Baruch,
how this happened.
And Mr. Baruch, if in fact she's telling the truth, and if in fact Mr. Depp, who has engaged in enormous rage and domestic abuse and violence of Amber over a period of time that you wouldn't know about, then maybe it's time for him to take responsibility, don't you think?
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the objection?
Speculation. Lack of foundation. Relevance.
Speculation.
He just went off on this rant and rave about assuming that she's...
You asked a question. So
I didn't ask a question that launched that.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay,
Right, next
you don't...
question.
I'll ask this.
Okay.
Mr. Baruch, you don't know whether Mr. Depp has committed domestic violence of Amber Heard, do you?
I never witnessed. I never saw or witnessed whatever type of claim that is being said, ever. Okay. I've never seen him be violent since teenagers from first meeting.
I didn't ask you that. I said you don't know whether he has committed domestic violence or abuse on Amber Heard. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. I did not witness any physical violence.
But you have seen Mr. Depp use drugs as well as drink and be drunk, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that is an important part there as well, Jenny. First of all, I think the Amber Heard side kind of had a little bit of difficulty wrangling him in a little bit. Maybe they wanted to let him go and show that he, I don't know his bias, but I don't know if that's really where it comes from. He obviously believes that Amber Heard is making all this up, but there is an important point because he wasn't there behind closed doors for what happened, right? A lot of the witnesses weren't there behind closed doors, and they were just seeing the aftermath of what happened.
Correct. So, and that's one of the hardest parts with this case is that it's really hard to find somebody that corroborated the story of Amber Heard other than her sister. So it's really hard to figure out, okay, what happened behind closed doors? You have all of this circumstantial evidence surrounding the case that he could have been violent, but there's nothing that corroborates that evidence. And seeing him, get emotional, I almost felt that he was in the relationship with them. So I still find that to be a very important piece of testimony that you could see he was genuinely hurt and honestly, shocked by these allegations that she would even go that far.
Matt Tepanek, let me ask you this. How do you think the jury is going through all this? Because you have the May 2016 incident, you have December 2015 headbutt, you have the Hicksville incident, you have Tokyo, you have the Boston airplane flight. Do they go through each one of these events, determine what happened, or do they say, hey, listen, there are audio tapes of him calling her names. That's abuse. That's it. We're done. We don't have to go through anything else. Or are they looking at each instance of physical abuse to say that is domestic abuse, and then also, of course, weighing the cavity search and the bottle sexual assault and whether that is sexual violence? How do you think they're going through all this?
I think they're going incident by incident, one by one. The thinking being is that even if they find one incident, that's all they need to find, one incident that they found to be, that actually happened, that they believe, that the evidence supports, then it's over, as to especially the domestic violence portion, because the allegations within the op-ed are about that he's a domestic abuser. If even one incident occurred and they find it, then that would be not found to be defamation. That being said, I think they're definitely going to look at the recordings. And the problem with the jury is, no matter when you ask a jury during jury selection, can you set aside your biases and do the evidence based on what you just see? They always say, yes, I can. The truth is they don't. All jurors always bring in their personal biases and their personal experiences into the jury room. So when they're listening to those audio recordings, definitely a few of them said, yeah, unfortunately, I'm ashamed to say I said that something similar like that to my significant other, but I never abused them. And that's what they're actually getting at. Was there physical abuse? Yes or no?
Great point to make, because I've spoken to a number of people about this case, particularly people outside the courtroom, and they say, listen, I yell at my wife or I yell at my husband. That's not abuse. Different, though. We're going to see what the jury comes back with and how they ultimately articulate whether or not there's emotional, psychological, verbal abuse outside of the physical, or maybe they're just focused on the physical. We'll wait and see. Let's take a break. When we come back, Stacey Delicat live from Fairfax County, Virginia is up next.
Believe me, just check her IG. Are you ready? There is a total of 1,154 photos in her Instagram, and I found 116 photos of her showing one eye symbolism. One eye symbolism is the logo of Illuminati. Let's see all the photos. 116 photos, all one eye symbolism. 8, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35.
everybody. We're in Verdict Watch in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial out in Fairfax County, Virginia. And speaking of Fairfax County, Virginia, it's time to go live there outside of the courthouse because our very own Stacey Delicat is with us with the very latest on what is happening outside. Good morning, Stacey. It's good to see you. Great reporting yesterday, your first day at the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. The scene looks a lot different than when Anjanette and I were there in the chaos of it all. Walk us through what you're seeing right now outside the courthouse.
Good morning, Jesse. Yeah, it's definitely much calmer than it was in the previous weeks when the actual trial was going on. As you can probably see behind me, huge media presence remains. Sheriff's deputies set up barricades early this morning. This is, of course, in anticipation of the verdict. If things get a little crazy, if we find out the jury has reached a verdict, the announcement is made, and people start to congregate here at the courthouse. But for now, it's pretty quiet. We believe the jury was back behind closed doors starting right around 9 a.m. this morning to resume deliberations after getting through almost a total of 9 hours. Yesterday, we saw the Depp team of attorneys arriving just before 9 o'clock, making their way into the courtroom. We believe Amber's lawyers are probably inside as well. Not too many fans or supporters of either side out here today. Kind of a few looky-loos hanging out here and there, but for now the scene is pretty quiet as everyone just sort of settles in to wait and see what we get from the jury today.
Oh, I imagine if a verdict is announced, that scene will look a lot different with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard supporters. Now, my understanding, Stacey, is we had an interesting legal development yesterday. Apparently, Depp's side tried to move the court to do something. Can you walk us through what that was about?
Yeah, so Jesse, that's right. There were sort of two developments yesterday. One was the question the jury had, which we've spoken about, where they asked the judge to clarify whether they were to consider just the headline of the op-ed or its entirety when deciding whether a statement was false or not. And then later in the day, we found out that the Depp team had filed a motion asking the court to strike what they said was an inappropriate argument made by Amber Heard's team during the closings, in which her attorney basically said that their decision in this case would send a message to domestic abuse victims everywhere. The judge said, look, the jury already has the case. There's nothing I can do, so I'm going to have to deny the motion for now. So perhaps had they made that motion during the closings or right after, they would have had a better chance as opposed to waiting, a full long weekend, but waiting until after the deliberations had begun. So that was a development we saw here yesterday, and everyone is just sitting tight. We'll see whether the jury has more questions today. We know they have a thick packet of jury instructions to get through. We know there are a number of questions they have to consider. Yesterday, everyone was saying, well, if they're still hung up on question 1, what does that mean in terms of how much more they have to get through? We just don't know. But obviously, Jesse, we're here keeping an eye on it all. Anjanette just went into the courtroom to see if anything's up in there, and we'll bring you an update at the top of the hour.
Well, if they only considered question 1, you better get a fan. You better get a fan. You better get some lunch. We might be out there for quite some time, but we're reading the tea leaves as best as anyone else, so we'll see. Stacey, thank you so much. Yep. Great reporting, as always. So we're going to continue the discussion of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. I want to go back to something interesting. There was an argument put forward by Johnny Depp's team that Amber Heard calculated a lot of what she did, that towards the end of the relationship, she made sure to go to get that TRO when Johnny Depp was away, that she faked her bruises, that she alerted the media that she was going to get this TRO and that they wanted to take pictures of her face, that this was all a calculated move. It supports Johnny Depp's argument that she is engaging in a hoax. I get the argument, but now let's move into the leaking of the video. There's this infamous video of Johnny Depp smashing a bunch of cabinets, and the allegation is that Amber Heard, as part of this calculated effort, leaked this video to TMZ. However, Amber Heard denies this. Let's start with Morgan Tremaine, who was a former TMZ employee.
How much time had passed from the time you received the kitchen cabinet video to the time it was posted on TMZ?
About 15 minutes.
Did any other tabloids other than TMZ post this video?
Objection, no, leading and calls for hearsay.
Did any other tabloids?
Overruled.
Mr. Tremaine, go ahead.
No, they did not.
And why not?
Because it was a TMZ exclusive.
And what does that mean?
It means the TMZ owns the copyright to it. So it can't be distributed by any other media source without backlinking to TMZ, and they wouldn't be able to upload that media without getting a copyright strike.
Have you seen the kitchen cabinet video that was played in this trial?
I have, yes.
How does that video that was played in this trial compare to the one you received on August 12, 2016?
When I had clicked the direct link that we received and watched the video in its entirety, it was much shorter than the video we had received, than the video that's been played in this trial. There was a bit at the beginning that was played here in which Ms. Heard is seemingly sort of setting up the camera and getting into position. And then there's a bit at the end where she's seemingly snickering and looks at the camera. That part was not present in what we received.
Did TMZ edit the video?
No, not even a little. When we receive something and it's edited, there's a clear indicator because there's sort of a journalistic practice that uses when there's an edit, you do what's called like a white flash transition, which covers the entire screen with white to very clearly indicate to everybody there was an edit here for time or whatever, just to make it a little more compelling. But in this case, it was not edited, as I was staring at the machine that edited it and present for the entirety of receipt to publishing.
Now, the video of Mr. Depp beating up some kitchen cabinets, you admit that you took that video, correct?
Yes, I did.
All right. And you acknowledge that the video was released online the day before you were deposed in connection with your divorce from Mr. Depp in August of 2016, right?
I believe it was, yes.
But you testified that you had absolutely nothing to do with the video's release, right?
Absolutely not.
And you testified that you learned about it when you landed after flying into LA. Do you remember that testimony?
Upon touchdown is when I was alerted to the video's existence.
You heard Mr.
Online.
Tremaine testify about this video as well yesterday, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you heard Mr. Tremaine testify that TMZ received the cabinet video the same day you landed at LAX, yes?
I don't know if that's what his testimony was. I'm sorry.
You heard Mr. Tremaine testify that the cabinet video was posted 15 minutes after TMZ received it, yes?
That's what I heard him say.
And that this could only have been possible if the video was received directly from the source, yes?
I heard him say that. I don't know if that's true or if that's possible because it didn't come from me. I was flying.
Tremaine
so I know that's incorrect is what I mean to say.
Another liar on the stand?
I just know that that's incorrect.
Right. And you heard Mr. Tremaine testify that TMZ owns the copyright to the cabinet video, right?
That's news to me.
The cabinet video you filmed of your then husband, yes?
The copyright ownership of that is news to me. I learned that yesterday.
It's the cabinet video that you captured of your then husband, yes?
That is correct. I did capture that video, and yes, that was my husband.
The same cabinet video that was released the night before you were deposed in your divorce, yes?
That's correct.
Okay. You must have also heard Mr. Tremaine testify that the version of the cabinet video that TMZ received was incomplete compared to the video the jury saw in this trial. Did you hear that?
The video that you have seen is complete.
Right. But the one TMZ got the day before your deposition in the divorce was incomplete.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
He testified that at the beginning portion of the video where you set up the camera, that wasn't included in the video that TMZ received.
I don't know what video TMZ received.
I'm talking about Mr. Tremaine's testimony, Ms. Heard. Let's just focus on Mr. Tremaine.
You're asking me to repeat his testimony?
No, I'm asking you if you recall hearing him say those words to this jury.
Yes, I heard his testimony. We all did.
And he testified that the end of the video where you can be seen smirking. I know you testified earlier that you haven't been smirking in this trial, but you sure were caught on camera smirking in that video.
I disagree with that.
Was also not included in the TMZ video.
Everyone can watch that video and you can determine whether you think it's funny to me or not.
That's because the video came from you, right, Ms. Heard?
No, it did not.
You edited out
did
the
not
portions.
Come to me. Come from me.
Ms. Heard, you edited out the portions that made you look bad before sending it to TMZ.
You're very wrong about that.
So that
if I wanted to leak information, I could have done it in a more effective way, a lot sooner and a lot more.
Because
I was living with a mountain of this evidence. If I wanted to leak it, I could have done a lot more with it.
What a cross. All right, so Jenny, at the end of the day, did she leak the video to TMZ? What do you think the evidence supports here?
I think the evidence is very clear that she leaked the video. I mean, there's a couple things that we want to look at. The first being TMZ's testimony with the fact that, you know, if the source was verified, they can post it in 15 minutes. And the second being, if Amber took the video, And the video that TMZ got was cut from the parts where Amber is being shown. Who else could have cut it but Amber herself? And why would you cut it? For that reason. So I think it's pretty clear that Amber leaked it.
All right, well, we know where you stand, Jenny. It's curious to see what the jury will stand. By the way, little side note, Morgan Tremaine, I saw on social media yesterday, someone made an action figure of him. So that is what we're dealing with in this kind of trial. You're never going to see a case quite like this again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more. Okay, welcome back, everybody. As we cover the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial and currently in verdict watch, we'll keep a very careful eye on that courtroom feed if we get an update from the jury, either a question or a verdict. Let's still talk a little bit about what we were focusing on the last block, whether or not Amber Heard leaked the kitchen cabinet video of Johnny Depp literally smashing up his kitchen to TMZ. Amber Heard, as we just played for you, denied doing this. Allegation put forward by Johnny Depp's side as this was part of an orchestrated plot on her behalf to really, go get a TRO, make Johnny Depp look bad, go get this legal order when Johnny Depp was away. Really, trying to say that she created an elaborate hoax. This is the argument put forward by Johnny Depp's side. But with her denying submitting this article to TMZ, there is some video that might be interesting to hear, because back in 2016, TMZ did a segment on the Depp cabinet video and who allegedly leaked it. Take a look.
The first thing I notice in this video is that Amber Heard, it's in this, I think she thinks helps her case, that this has happened enough to her that she puts this camera down on the table and starts filming because she knows the way this argument's going to go and wants to get whatever he says or does on tape. If you notice, halfway through the video, she moves the camera so that it gets the angle of Johnny Depp so that he's on camera. Now, the other thing that I have to say Amber thinks by leaking this video is going to go a long way for her is that she's been alleging a lot of bad things about Johnny Depp, about domestic violence, about hitting her, breaking bottles, and overall acting a certain way and being intoxicated. She thinks this video proves that. The video to her proves, number one, you can tell Johnny Depp's intoxicated. Number two, he breaks a glass and a bottle on tape. And three, at the end of it, he grabs the camera in a menacing enough way where you think maybe something happens after that. We are told this video was taken months before the alleged assault took place. Amber's, I think, hope, and she hasn't said she didn't put this tape out, but come on.
I was celebrating.
You know, she taped it, she's the only one with the video.
And by the way, at her side, we should say, her side says there was no domestic violence here. This is, and we know that they are also saying that this was heavily edited, they say, and that's their position, but it is...
All right, Matt, let me ask you the number one question. Why was this not introduced into evidence? Or is this just, you know, someone's opinion about how it was leaked, you know? And you tell me.
Well, this is basically expert testimony. To be able to introduce this evidence, you would need an expert, Harvey, I'm a lawyer, whatever his name is, testifying as like an AV expert, because the testimony itself is hearsay, not with an exception. So to introduce it, they would have to put one of the people on the stand from TMZ,